Namaste and welcome. So, from today onwards, I will be doing a series of talks only about the practical sides, the practical tips. Now, I've discussed science with you many times, and a lot of people come to me and say, yes, sir, we understand, we know the knowledge, we know the content, but we're not able to change. And the question comes, how do you make a new habit, or how do you change an old habit? So that is the problem, right? So first of all, remember exactly the same way as you made a habit, exactly the same way you change a habit. So how did you make a habit? You made a habit by doing something with somebody like eating, smoking, drinking, and liking it. Your palate likes it, your senses like it, your eyes like it, your taste buds like it, and then you want to do it again. And then you do it again, and then you do it again. So doing it 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 times, it becomes a habit. So this is how you make a habit, and this is also how you make a new habit. So when you have a habit that you want to change, you pick up a corresponding good habit, and then you keep doing it over and over and over and over again, and that then supplants the old habit. So it's very simple. So what is the key? The key is practice, repetition, practice, repetition, practice, repetition, over and over and over again. So that is a secret. So we so many times talked about this. So for the next several weeks, here is what we're going to do. I am going to give you practical tips and all these 10 pillars. And I keep saying in my programs that in 80% lifestyle disorders, whether it's blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, heart disease, blockages, obesity, 80% are reversible by doing these 10 things that we tell you, the 10 pillars of DASH. But the problem is, people come back to me and they say, my blood pressure did not go back to normal. My question is, did you do all 10 of them as we tell you to do? Now, if you do it 10%, you'll see 10% improvement in blood pressure. 20%, 20%. It depends upon how much effort you put into it, how long you practice, and continue that practice. That determines the change. So today we'll begin with the practical tips of the first pillar, which is diet. So first of all, this slide and this slide, these two slides, I'm going to post on live today. So your first homework to change, first requirement for change is this. You print these out on your home computer, nice color prints on a nice glossy paper, and you stick them with a magnet on your fridge for you to see and your family to see. So every time you go to the fridge to get a glass of water or to get food out or get fruit out, you look at this, you go through it. To go through it, it'll take you 5 seconds. And then you look at this. Now, when you're doing this over and over and over again, because it's on your fridge now, it's reminding you. See, when you come to meet me once a week, I talk about this, but rest of the 6 days, there's no reminder. So this is a practical tip of self-reminding by printing it out and posting it on your fridge. So that's first practice, first practical tip. The second practical tip we talked about is the four things in diet that we want you to maximize: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes. And there are three to minimize: sugar, oil, salt. And there are three to avoid: animal, dairy, and processed. So in four to maximize, today I'm going to talk about whole grain. So we'll go through all 10 of them. It doesn't have to be any particular sequence. So what is whole grain and what is polished grain? Those of you who live in the villages or have gone past a village see this beautiful growth of paddy, wheat, and rice paddy, right? You see them, it's green, and then it matures, then it becomes brown. When it becomes brown, there's a very long stalk. On top of that are the grains. And you take those grains out. When you take those grains out and you look at it, they're all covered in a cover. Each grain is individually covered in a cover, and that is called husk, Husk, husk. So if you just shake it, you can remove the husk. Or if you hit it on the table with this, holding the stalk, you can actually remove the husk. So it's easy to dehusk. Now, when you dehusk that grain, what remains now is the whole grain. So how is it different from processed grain? In the processing, what you do is you polish the grain. So what it does is it removes the outer coating of the grain, and that is called bran, B-R-A-N, bran. By removing the bran, what happens? The grain becomes less brown. It becomes more white and polished. And there's a lot of fiber content in the bran that gets taken out. So the brown grain has now become white. Now, why do people use polishing the grain and make it white and eat it that way? So there are many reasons for that. The very first reason is the ease of cooking. If you cook whole grain, whether it's rice or chapati, it takes longer to cook because there's more fiber. If you eat it, there's no doubt the polished grain to the tongue is more tasty. There's no denying that. We accept that, right? So whenever we talk about the benefit of prevention, you always think in your mind two things. There is a pain and suffering of prevention. So when you change these dietary habits and you move from polished grain to whole grain, there's a change in taste that is there. And I do not deny that the taste will change. It's not the same taste that you had before. So you have to have some adjustments to be made to the taste. There may be some pain, some grief, some suffering. But what you have to tell your mind is, should I have this small pain and suffering of changing from polished grain to whole grain now? Or do I want to have the suffering of regret 3 or 5 years from now when I have a heart attack or I have stroke or I have cancer that I could have prevented? Because people that eat whole grain have 20 to 30% less chance of getting blood pressure, 20 to 30% chance of getting less stroke, 20 to 30% chance of getting less heart attack, 20 to 30% chance of getting less obesity, and have 10 to 20% less weight than obese people. So look at all the benefits. So you polish the rice or you polish the wheat, you throw away the bran, and what are you eating now? What you're eating now is basically the polished grain, which has all its nutrients taken away. Okay. So when you polish the grain and remove the bran, so those of you who understand rice, they will know there's something called a rice bran oil. You know how the rice bran oil is made? When you send rice from milling to a milling factory, you remove the bran, which is brown, and they keep it on the side, and you buy the polished grain. But do you know that bran also is sold? And the oil companies buy the bran. And then they churn the bran, and from that bran, they make the oil, which is called rice bran oil. So if that bran that they removed, if there's nothing in it, how could you create oil out of it? What you need to know is the bran, which is the covering of the grain, has fiber. Fiber that improves your gut health, and fiber that prevents diabetes, and the fiber that reduces obesity. And it has more phytochemicals and nutrients, micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, they're all in it. So when you remove the bran and throw away, which has 60 to 70 to 80% of the nutrients, and you keep the polished grain, so you're eating the polished grain with very good taste, but you have thrown away everything that was beneficial for you. So it is like you don't know, you are in a coal mine, there's a diamond in the coal mine, but you'll ignore the diamond and you take the coal and you're happy. It's just like that. The most nutritious part of a grain is the outer covering bran. So once you move from whole grain to polished grain, you lost all that. So how do you then switch from polished grain to whole grain? So I'm not asking you to switch your preferential grain. Say if you're eating millets, see millets are very small, very small. You cannot polish them. So most of the millets are whole grains. So if you're eating millets, fine, you're eating whole grain. When you're eating polished rice, I want you to switch that polished rice to whole grain rice, the brown rice. When you're eating the polished wheat, I want you to move away from polished wheat. I do not deny the fact that the polished grain is more tasty. I don't deny that. Okay. See, when you go to some place and eat what is called in North India puri, right? It is maida. It's even more polished grain. Okay. Why do they use maida for puri? Number one, when you fry the puri, it's easier to fry because the fiber is taken out. Secondly, because there's no fiber, there's less oil consumed. So the puri maker, the halwai, benefits on two grounds. One is it is more tasty and less filling because there's no fiber. So he eat more puris. Secondly, it takes less oil, so he saves on oil. So he saves the consumption of oil. And at the same time, he also makes you eat more because there's no fiber and there's no satiety. He makes more money. And you increase your risk of diabetes and obesity and heart attack and stroke and cholesterol and blood pressure. So it's as simple as that. So what do you need to do for that? The best thing is if you live close to a small village or a small town, they still have small mills where you can take your own whole grain and tell them, I want whole grain out of it. Or you take your rice and get whole grain rice out of it. But that may not be available to a lot of people living in big cities. But these days, you can get 100% whole grain rice and 100% whole grain wheat online. You can order through any online company. If you want, you can order organic. If you don't want organic, you can order whichever one you like, but it is not difficult to get that. So first practical tip I gave you is make a copy of the two slides that I presented today and put them on your fridge with a magnet. The second practical tip I'm giving you is after you finish this talk, log into your computer or your phone, go on to Amazon or any of those online stores and order yourself a small package, half a kilo of rice or a half a kilo of whole grain, and get that. And make sure that it is really whole grain, it looks that, and start cooking it. There will be a learning process for your tongue. There'll be a learning process of your cooking. Whole grain rice may take a little longer to cook. Your content of water that you put in, you'll have to do some experimentation. It may be different. Depending upon how it's cooked, it may come out a little bit more sticky than the white rice. So all these inconvenience will be there. So what you then have to see is, am I willing to go through the inconvenience of procuring whole grain, cooking it, living with slightly different taste? Or am I going to go not eat whole grain and then regret later on when I get my heart attack or a problem? Okay. So whole grain also, because it has fiber. So fiber, you think about fiber, it goes inside the intestine and makes a mesh. To give you a simple example of fiber making a mesh is those of you who have gone to villages or those who have seen in the movie the villages. In the villages, they sleep on what is called cot, a village cot. And a village cot is made of fiber, munch. It's called munch in Hindi. So what they do is big fiber strands that come from the tall grass that they wind and wind and wind and becomes almost like a rope. And they crisscross that with that, and that is how it makes a cot. So that's exactly the same way the fibers go inside the intestine and they mix and intertwine and make a barrier. So now the sugar that was going to be absorbed right away as it goes inside the intestine now has to go through this barrier. So there's some obstruction between the intestinal wall where the sugar is absorbed. It is a barrier. So the sugar takes less time to absorb. So let's say you ate white chapati, a white rice, right? 3 chapatis. And that gave you, let's say, 50 or 60 grams of sugar or 70 grams of sugar. Another person ate brown rice or brown grain chapati. He also got 50, 60, 70 grams of carbohydrate. Now, because in the brown grain there is fiber that prevents the rapid absorption of sugar, the spike in sugar of two people will be different. So the one that had polished rice or polished grain, his sugar is going to peak like this. Fast rise, fast drop. But the one who ate brown rice is going to be like this. It's going to be a slow rise and slow drop. And the peak is going to be less than the peak of the white sugar or white rice or white grain. So it blunts the peak and it blunts the rise and fall. And that is how the brown rice and the brown grain lowers the glycemic index, because this is a big thing these days, right? In diabetes, what kind of food to eat. Just by leaving the fiber in the grain, you lower the glycemic index. So that is one way it improves the diabetes. Also, fiber makes your gut regular. You evacuate your gut regularly. There are less toxin that accumulate in your body. You have less constipation, less distension, less bloating, less heartburn. So these are your GI tract advantages. So change to whole grain today. Go online and order your first batch of whole grain rice and whole grain wheat. And then experiment with that. There may be several different varieties. For example, rice, polished rice. There are many varieties of polished rice. Some people like small rice, some like big long grain, some like basmati, some like all of these can come in whole grain variety and polished varieties. So there is some experimentation that you'll have to do with it. But remember, when you begin this experimentation, there's a small price of discomfort and inconvenience that you're paying now. It is much smaller price to pay compared to a much larger price of regret after a heart attack or after a stroke or after a cancer. So that is about the whole grain. The second thing we talk about is the fruits. Fruits, the best way to eat fruits is raw, simple. You cut any fruit and you eat it. The minimum that we recommend is 2 fruits a day, like an apple and an orange or apple or banana and orange. You can rotate them. It doesn't have to be exotic fruit. The fruit and green vegetables combined should be 5 portions a day, they say. I usually take a lot more than that. I take about at least 4 to 5 fruits a day. My breakfast is only fruits. And it doesn't matter what fruits you eat. The best thing is eat seasonal, local, cheapest. Whatever is available in the season. For example, all summer, I was in India and we have on our ashram, we have our own mangoes, and there are also mangoes available outside. So all summer, two big mangoes was my breakfast. Huge, big mangoes. First of all, I love mango. There is nothing in the world which I find more tasty than mango. And entire mango season, I ate about 2 to 3, sometimes 4. Sometimes I made my dinner also mango. So buy the seasonal, buy local, cheapest fruit. The fruits that you can peel away with the skin, see, they are the safest because there's a big thick skin you remove, then there are contaminants, adulteration, pesticides, insecticides. Hopefully, they're not in that quantity inside. As compared to a strawberry, right? A strawberry is fully exposed, anything can go inside. So if somebody has used pesticides and insecticides on mango and pesticides and insecticides on strawberry, it's far more likely that you're eating more insecticides and pesticides with strawberry than you're eating with mango because you peel it away. Same with banana, safest fruit because it's got a very thick skin and you throw away that skin and you eat the pulp inside. So like that, start with 2 fruits a day, go to 3, go to 4. There's nothing wrong with that. Fruits give you the phytochemicals. The color, all the color in the fruits and vegetable is called phytochemical. Phytochemical is antioxidant. So the moment you switch to whole grain, 3 to 4 fruits a day, and the green leafy vegetables I will talk about, and the legumes, you don't have to do detox. Try to understand that these panch karmas and this karma and that karma that you do, this is for those people. It's like, you know what panch karma is? Panch karma is the pilgrimage of the sinner. So some people think that whole year I can go sinning, and then end of the year I'll go and take a dip in Holy Ganga, and the Holy Ganga will wash away all my sins. Pretty much that's how a lot of people take Panchkarma as. Whole year eating whatever you want to eat and then get detox. There is no doubt that there is detox. There's a natural detox, there is a naturopathy detox, there's an Ayurvedic detox. They're all beautiful, they all work. But if you're eating whole grain, fruits, green leafy vegetables, and legumes, you're detoxed every day. Why do you have to go for detox? Your bowel is regular, right? And the fiber that goes out is naturally detoxing your whole colon. You don't have to go do colon douches or colon enemas and those things. How those of you who are old enough to remember will remember way back when there were those glass bottles for the milk, those Gerber bottles we used to get. There used to be a brush with that, with bristles sticking out that you inside the bottle and you go and move that and clean the inside of the bottle, right? Some of you may remember that. That's exactly what fiber does. The fiber does not get absorbed. So the fiber that you take in the diet, most of the fiber just goes out that way, out. So what it is doing is, first of all, I told you it becomes a barrier for the absorption of the sugar and therefore slow absorption of sugar and prevents diabetes. Second is it is cleaning the inside of the colon because it's spinning inside. Every time the colon moves and there is peristalsis in the colon, it's rotating around like this. So it's taking all the bad things with it and it comes out. The more fiber you eat, cleaner your gut. Now, see, those of you who live in villages may have noticed a cow only eats grass. So, grass is cellulose. Cellulose predominantly is a non-digestible fiber, and that is why a cow can eat 4 to 5 kilo or 8 kilos of grass a day and can go and have bowel movement 3, 4, 5 times a day. And if you look at the bowel movement of a cow, you can actually see undigested fibers there too. So that is the beauty of fiber. Fiber is detox. So the more fiber in your diet, there's more detox. Then you don't have to pay money to go somewhere for a week or 10 days in a resort to get the detox. This is detox, the best natural detox. So fruits, the best way to eat fruit, as I said, is in the morning. And that's why in our program, we recommend your breakfast should be fruit. I tell you why. Your most productive time in your life is actually up to 12 noon. In the morning, from 5 a.m. when you wake up, from 5 to 12 noon, 7 hours is your most mentally and even physically the productive time. Your body has had complete rest the night before. Your mind has had the complete rest the night before. And then it begins to act. When the body begins to act as you wake up, it needs fuel. And fruits provide simple carbohydrate fuel, simple carbohydrates that you require for energy. So if your morning diet is fruits, your mind stays fresh and your body stays strong and fresh. If your morning breakfast has something that used oil, a fried dosa or a fried paratha, then you have too much oil in it, right? Too much fat in it, and fat makes you drowsy. And that's why these people that have heavy, oily breakfast, cooked breakfast in the morning, not as productive. If you eat breakfast full of fruits in the morning and some sprouts with it for proteins, right? And some nuts, as we recommend, almonds, you stay fresh and full until 12 or 1 p.m. So for those 5 a.m. to 1 p.m., so that's almost 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 8. That's 8 hours. These are the most productive 8 hours of my life. That's when I'm most productive. I work, I do my own things that I need to do. I do my own yoga, practice, exercise, see patients, whatever. And I've noticed after 1 p.m., the energy goes down. This is how human body is. And then in the evening, I take afternoon rest a little bit, half an hour after my lunch. And in the evening, you do a little bit of work, and then you go to your sadhana and practice and whatever you want to do, and wind down 8, 9 p.m. and 10 o'clock you sleep. This way, my friends, if you're eating whole grain, fruits, green leafy vegetables, and legumes, if that is your predominant diet, 10 p.m. you'll go to sleep because you want to sleep, not because you're tired. You will not be tired. There's no such thing as fatigue if you're eating proper diet. And immediately as you go to bed, because you have not put anything upsetting in your stomach, your last meal was 3 hours before you went to sleep, you have a sound sleep. And you wake up at 5 o'clock fresh. And you wake up, and you wake up because it's time for you to wake up. There's no hangover, there's no yawning, there is nothing. Just wake up and you're fresh. You freshen up, you do whatever you need to do, and then you're ready for the day again. So people that eat this kind of diet that we are recommending, you're never tired, you're never fatigued, you have very good sleep, you're full of energy, productive all day. It has nothing to do with your age. It has nothing to do with your body type. It has nothing to do with your body size. It's the wrong diet that is causing the problem. So today, I discuss with you about whole grain, and I discuss with you about fruits. In the next session, I'm going to discuss with you green leafy vegetables and legumes and what is their role in preventing lifestyle disorders. Preventing, controlling, reversing. Just by switching to whole grain and fruits, you see the difference in your body weight, difference in your parameters, your blood pressure, your diabetes, and you're reducing the risk of heart attack, and you're reducing the risk of stroke, and you're reducing the risk of cancer. All right. So today you're going to do three things, right? Number one is you're going to print out the 10 pillars of DASH and the 10 dietary requirements of IHC. Put them with a magnet on your fridge. You're going to procure your whole grain today by going online and switch to whole grain. Now, when you taste it for the first time, you know how it's going to be? I tell you how it's going to be. I just saw that half an hour ago. My wife is feeding my 18 months old grandson, who we love, and anything that you put in his mouth that is not tasted before, he takes it in, spits it out. So, for example, he's not very used to tangerines and oranges. So she gave him that. He put it in the mouth, out. Then she gave him grapes, said, out. Because he has not developed the discernment, the viveka, the knowledge that what is the benefit of fruit. So if you also do the same thing to fruit, it's not much different about understanding and knowledge and discernment as compared to an 18 months old. 18-month-old we can excuse, okay? But us, we should think. We should think, why am I not doing the right thing for my body just because of a little taste? And then what happened? My wife kept giving him that. So after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times spitting, he started eating it. Now he's liking it, he's eating it. Same way, by switching to whole grain initially, you will have some pain and suffering of change, which is this big. Or you have a choice to ignore that and then have the pain and suffering this big of regret later on when you get heart attack, stroke, or cancer. So print out the two things, stick on your fridge, get your whole grain today, buy fruits, and begin your day with fruits, your breakfast with fruits. Okay? And we told you stick to 3 meals a day. In between meals, don't eat anything. 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 6 p.m. is ideal. 9 a.m. breakfast, 1 p.m. lunch, and 6 p.m. dinner is ideal. But the more you move away from that, the benefit diminishes, but keep that in mind. And if your breakfast is fruits, 5 to 7 almonds, as we say in the program, and boil or sprouted 25 to 50 grams of chana. And in the chana, you can have diced tomatoes, onions, coriander, green chili, lime, cucumber. These 6 things you can add. So you're adding more phytochemicals because, getting colored things. Chilies have capsaicin, which is an antioxidant. The tomato has lycopene, anti-cancer, right? Green coriander has phytochemicals. Onion has phytochemicals. Lime has phytochemicals and a lot of vitamin C. So it's a beautiful, healthy breakfast you're having. Grains we keep for lunch and dinner, right? We don't do grains in the morning, right? And follow this. So in the next session, we will discuss green leafy vegetables and legumes. Thank you.